Episode 7, The Offensive. The Mapogo regrouped in the thick of the swamp, far from the prying eyes of Specter's network. The air hung heavy with humidity and anticipation, the brothers sharpening weapons, loading ammunition, and reviewing the plan. The days of being hunted were over. They were bringing the fight to Specter. Lion stood over a large map spread across the makeshift table, his piercing light brown eyes locked on the sugar mill. Turtle sat beside him, pointing at key locations with a laser pointer. "They've fortified every entrance," Turtle explained, his voice steady. "Cameras, guards, and probably more traps. If we hit them head-on, it's suicide." "We not going in blind," Lion said. "Graves gave us a way in, a tunnel that runs under the mill. Specter doesn't know we know about it." Rhino grunted from the corner, leaning on his shotgun. "Good. I'm tired of watching them burn this place to the ground while we wait." Panther, sitting quietly by the window, finally spoke. "What about Razor? He's not just muscle, he's smart. If we get caught in that tunnel, we'll be sitting ducks." Lion nodded. "That's why you and I will run distraction while Rhino and Turtle take the tunnel. We keep Razor's attention long enough for them to get in and plant the charges." Turtle frowned. "What about Graves? You think we can still trust him?" Lion's expression hardened. "He knows what happens if he cross us." The plan in motion. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the Mapogo moved out. The swamp seemed to hold its breath, the chirping of crickets fading into an eerie silence. Graves waited for them near the tunnel's entrance, a rusty grate hidden beneath a cluster of trees. His gray eyes flicked nervously between the brothers. "You sure about this?" Graves asked. "If Specter finds out I helped you, I'm dead." "You're already dead if you don't," Rhino growled, shoving past him to inspect the grate. Graves swallowed hard, stepping aside. "Fair enough." Lion crouched beside him, his tone calm but firm. "You did your part. Now get out of here before this place blows." Graves nodded and disappeared into the shadows, leaving the brothers to their work. Specter's defense inside the sugar mill. Specter stood in the center of his war room, watching the monitors that displayed feeds from the perimeter cameras. Razor leaned against a nearby wall, idly spinning his machete in one hand. "They'll come tonight," Specter said, his voice cold. "They're desperate, and desperate men make mistakes." Razor smirked. "Let 'em. I'll be waiting." Specter turned to him, his pale face expressionless. "No, you'll stay here. If they're smart, they'll send someone through the tunnel. I want them alive." Razor's smirk faded, replaced by a look of annoyance. "And if they're not smart, then bury them," Specter said simply. The infiltration Rhino and Turtle moved through the tunnel, the narrow passage forcing Rhino to crouch as he carried the bag of explosives. The air was damp and suffocating, the sound of dripping water echoing around them. "Next time, I'm picking the route," Rhino muttered, his shotgun slung over his shoulder. Turtle smirked, his eyes scanning the map on his tablet. "Almost there. Just don't step on anything that looks like it shouldn't be there." Rhino grunted in response, his focus on the dim light ahead. Meanwhile, Lion and Panther approached the mill's main gate, their movements silent and calculated. Panther took out a guard with a quick strike, his knife slicing through the night like a shadow. Lion signaled for him to move forward, his own weapon ready. "Stay low, we need to keep them busy." Panther nodded, slipping into the darkness. The trap. As Rhino and Turtle reached the end of the tunnel, they found themselves in a small room beneath the mill. Pipes and machinery surrounded them, and the faint hum of generators filled the air. "This is it," Turtle whispered, setting the explosives. But as they worked, a low, menacing voice echoed through the room. "Figured you'd come this way," Razor said, stepping out of the shadows. His machete gleamed in the dim light, and a twisted grin spread across his face. Rhino stepped in front of Turtle, his shotgun leveled at Razor. "You picked the wrong place to die, Razor." Razor tilted his head, his grin widening. "Funny, I was about to say the same to you." The battle. The room erupted into chaos as Razor lunged at Rhino, his machete swinging with terrifying speed. Rhino blocked the strike with the butt of his shotgun, the force of the blow knocking him back. Turtle scrambled to finish setting the charges, his hands shaking as he worked. "Rhino, I need more time!" "Then work faster!" Rhino growled, shoving Razor back and firing a shot that barely missed. Above ground, Lion and Panther were locked in their own battle. Guards swarmed the yard, and the brothers fought with precision and brutality, taking out enemies with each calculated move. Panther ducked behind a stack of crates, reloading his weapon. This is taking too long. They'll figure out the tunnel soon. Lion fired at a guard, dropping him with a single shot. Then we keep them busy until they don't have time to figure it out. The explosion. Back in the tunnel, Razor had disarmed Rhino, pinning him against the wall. The machete's blade pressed against Rhino's throat, a cruel smile on Razor's face. "Any last words?" Razor taunted. Rhino smirked. "Yeah, duck." Razor turned just in time to see Turtle swing a wrench, the metal connecting with his head. Razor staggered, giving Rhino enough time to grab his shotgun and slam the butt into Razor's face, knocking him out cold. Turtle finished setting the charges, grabbing Rhino by the arm. "Time to go!" The two men raced back down the tunnel as the explosives detonated, the ground shaking as the mill erupted in flames. Aftermath. The Mapogo regrouped at their boat, watching as the sugar mill burned in the distance. The fire lit up the night, a beacon of their victory and the war yet to come. "We hit them hard," Panther said, his voice steady. "But Specter's still out there." Lion nodded, his gaze fixed on the flames. "And we'll find him. This was just the beginning." Episode 8, The Vulture's Shadow. The explosion at the sugar mill was the first real blow the Mapogo had dealt to Specter and the Black Tides. But victories in the swamp were fleeting, and the brothers knew the reprieve would be short-lived. Lion stood at the bow of the boat as they sped through the bayou, the glow of the burning mill fading into the distance. His piercing light brown eyes scanned the horizon, but his mind was already moving to the next step. "We bought ourselves some time," Panther said, breaking the silence. He sat near the engine, cleaning his blade. "But Specter isn't the type to let something like this slide." Rhino, still nursing a gash on his arm from the fight with Razor, grunted. "Let him come. We're ready for him." Turtle, perched near the laptop he'd managed to save from the blast, looked up. "We're not ready. Not even close. That explosion didn't just take out their supplies, it woke up the entire swamp. Every gang, every criminal with a grudge is going to come sniffing around to see who's left standing." Lion finally spoke, his voice steady but laced with tension. "Then we make our next move before they do. Turtle, what do we have on Vulture?" The mention of their brother's betrayal brought a heavy silence over the group. Turtle hesitated, then began typing. "Not much. He's gone quiet since the Reapers fell. But if he's still working for Specter and the Harbinger, he won't stay quiet for long." Vulture's evolution. Julian. Vulture Baudouin had always been the outlier of the Mapogo. Where his brothers fought for justice, Vulture had always leaned toward pragmatism, willing to do whatever it took to survive. Vulture was the youngest of the Baudouin brothers, and his path had been the darkest. Growing up, he'd been the one to see their father's worst side, enduring years of abuse that hardened him. His defection from the Mapogo wasn't born out of hatred, it was born out of despair. He didn't believe in their mission anymore. He believed in power, and the Harbinger offered him that. Vulture had changed since leaving the Mapogo. His once wiry frame had filled out with muscle, and his face was marked by scars he'd earned working for Specter. His cold, calculating eyes were now those of a man who had fully embraced his darker instincts. Vulture's alliance with Specter wasn't just about survival, it was about proving his brothers wrong. He believed their code was a weakness, and that true justice could only be achieved through control. Specter's response. The sugar mill smoldered under the pale light of the moon, its charred remains a testament to the Mapogo's retaliation. Specter stood amidst the wreckage, his pale face unreadable. Smoke curled in the humid air, mingling with the acrid smell of burnt wood and gasoline. Razor limped toward him, his face dark with fury, the bandage on his head stained with blood. "This was a disaster," Razor growled, slamming his machete into the nearest table. The heavy blade embedded itself in the wood, vibrating with the force of the strike. Specter didn't flinch. His icy gaze remained fixed on the monitors salvaged from the ruins, still displaying footage from the surviving cameras. "No," he said calmly. "This was necessary." "Necessary?" Razor snapped. "They blew up half our operation and made us look weak. You call that necessary?" Specter finally turned to him, his milky white eye glinting in the flickering light. "What they did was expose themselves. They're predictable, impulsive. They strike at what they can see, but they don't understand what they can't. Razor scoffed, pulling the machete free. So what? We let them destroy everything while you play chess? Specter's voice turned cold. You're a weapon, Razor, a good one, but don't mistake your role for mine. Let me worry about strategy. You'll get your chance to spill their blood soon enough. Razor hesitated, his anger tempered by a grudging respect for Specter's control. He grunted and stepped back, muttering under his breath as Specter returned to the monitors. One of the screens displayed an aerial view of the swamp, the footage taken by a drone hovering above the wreckage. Specter's lips curled into a faint smile as he spoke to an unseen figure behind him. Bring me Baudouin, he said, his tone sharp and deliberate. Let's see if he's still loyal to his family, or if he's ready to become something more. The Mapogo's next step. The brothers arrived at Big Lou's old fishing shack, now their temporary base of operations. Turtle had pulled up every file he could find on Vulture's last known movements, tracing him to a secluded hideout near the southern edge of the swamp. Vulture's smart, Turtle said, tapping the screen. If he's still alive, he's got eyes on us already. He's not going to let us get close without a fight. Lion studied the map, his jaw tight. We not gonna fight him. Not yet. We gonna bring him back. Rhino barked a laugh. You think he wants to come back? He sold us out, Lion. He's not our brother anymore. Panther leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. If we don't bring him back, he becomes our enemy. And Vulture knows us better than anyone. He's dangerous enough with Specter backing him. Lion nodded. This isn't just about Vulture. It's about stopping the Harbinger before they take control of the swamp. And if Vulture is the key, we gonna use him. The confrontation. The brothers moved under the cover of darkness, navigating the dense swamp to Vulture's hideout. The cabin was well hidden, surrounded by water and thick trees, with a single path leading to the front door. As they approached, a voice called out from the shadows. You're predictable, Lion, Vulture said, stepping into view. He was dressed in black, his cold eyes fixed on his brothers. Always so noble, always so sure you're doing the right thing. Lion didn't lower his weapon. And you still running, Julian, still trying to prove you smarter than the rest of us. Vulture smirked, his hand resting casually on the pistol at his hip. I am smarter. That's why I'm still standing, while the rest of you are scrambling to survive. Rhino took a step forward, his voice a low growl. You're standing because you sold us out. Vulture's smirk faded, replaced by a glare. I did what I had to do. You think this swamp can be saved with your little code of honor? The Harbinger's offering something better, order, control. Lion lowered his weapon slightly, his voice softening. And you think they're going to let you keep that control? You a pawn to them, Julian, just like Specter. For a moment, Vulture hesitated, but the flicker of doubt in his eyes was quickly replaced by defiance. Leave, he said, his tone sharp. Before I change my mind about letting you walk out of here. Lion met his gaze, unflinching. This ain't over. Specter's gambit. Later that night, Vulture arrived at the ruins of the sugar mill, stepping carefully over the debris. The fire had been extinguished, but the destruction was total. His brothers had struck hard, and for the first time, he questioned whether they were truly as outmatched as Specter claimed. Specter stood at the center of the ruins, illuminated by the harsh glow of a portable floodlight. The surviving members of the Black Tides worked in the background, salvaging supplies and equipment from the wreckage. You called for me, Vulture said, his voice even as he approached. Specter turned, his pale face emotionless. I did. I assume you know why. Vulture crossed his arms. They found me. I warned you they might. Specter's expression didn't change. And yet, you're still standing. That tells me two things. Either they didn't want to kill you, or you didn't give them a reason to. Vulture's jaw tightened. They're my brothers. I didn't join you to kill them. Specter stepped closer, his presence almost suffocating. Then why did you join me, Boudreaux? Was it for power, freedom, or was it to prove to yourself that you're better than them? Vulture didn't answer immediately, his gaze dropping to the ground. Specter leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. I can give you everything they couldn't. Control, purpose, a legacy. But you have to let go of them. If you hesitate, if you waver, you'll lose everything. To them, you'll always be the weak link. Vulture's fists clenched at his sides. They're my family. Specter's smile was cold and humorless. No, Julian, I'm your family now, and families make sacrifices. He turned away, gesturing to Razor, who stepped forward with a small metal box. Inside were detailed schematics of the Mapogo's known hideouts, including their latest base at Big Lou's fishing shack. You want to prove yourself? Specter asked, his voice as sharp as a blade. Take this. Deliver it to our men, and we'll end this fight before it starts. Or, Specter let the word hang in the air, his pale gaze piercing Vulture's resolve. Or you can go crawling back to them and watch everything you've built burn to the ground. Vulture stared at the box, his mind racing. He could feel the weight of Specter's gaze, the silent threat that came with disobedience. But in the back of his mind, the image of his brothers lingered, a flicker of hope he hadn't yet extinguished. I'll deliver it, Vulture said finally, his voice cold and detached. Specter's smile returned, faint but satisfied. Good. Don't disappoint me, Baudouin. As Vulture left the ruins, Razor approached Specter, his machete resting on his shoulder. You really think he'll do it? Specter watched Vulture's figure disappear into the shadows. It doesn't matter. Either he proves his loyalty, or he leads them straight to us. Either way, we win. Aftermath. The Mapogo had no idea that their next move was being orchestrated by their own brother. As they planned their next strike, Vulture prepared to lead them into Specter's trap, torn between loyalty to his family and his growing fear of the man he now served. Specter, meanwhile, began fortifying his remaining strongholds, his mind already moving 3 steps ahead. For him, the battle wasn't about brute force. It was about breaking the Mapogo from within.